EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday morning edition of Birds 365. We kick off April here across the show, and we get closer to the NFL draft, now just 22 days away. The NFL owners' meetings wrapped up, and Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie spoke yesterday. We'll get into that, as well as a little piece that just dropped on ESPN, which we'll talk about a little bit.
ESPN Africa, at least. I don't know.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a link.
ESPN Yes, that's what it's showing for me too, John. But like you said, it's up there, so we'll talk a little bit about it. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Yeah, gearing up. I thought it would be just a Jeffrey Lurie based day on stadiums. And instead, it's going to turn into much more than that because what ESPN, Tim McManus did a great job. Jeremy Fowler, a lot of stuff we talk about, but condensed into one piece, pretty exhaustive piece about what was going on with the Eagles offense, and it's probably not what you think was going on with the Eagles offense, which is we talked about, but people don't like it. So It's a very difficult conversation to have.
Well, it's an article worth reading for anybody who doesn't want to believe some of that stuff. So we will get into that a little bit, John. We will also get into Jeffrey Lurie, who spoke about the potential of a new stadium in Philadelphia. I kind of appreciated the slower approach, or at least what he said about it. These things take time, and you want to think through it and do it the right way. And so he talked about that, maybe the potential of a new stadium coming to Philadelphia or a renewed lease. We will talk a little bit more about that today, as well as some glowing comments on quarterback Jalen Hurts from the Eagles owner. John, what'd you make of Jeffrey Lurie speaking yesterday at the conclusion of the owners' meetings?
Yeah, the stadium stuff, I don't know if it's, it's so far out, 2032. I don't know how much it interests people, but it is a big story, obviously, and they're going to use the leverage that they have to try to get the best deal possible. And he left that open-ended, so it'd be silly for him to say, no, we're going to stay in South Philly no matter what. Then you lose all the leverage in these type of situations. So you keep everything open on the table. So no surprise there. I think, football wise, the most interesting part was he didn't know who he was talking about at first with Jalen. You got a question, ironically, from Tim about Jalen, and he immediately went to Jalen Carter, I guess, because they're working on that extension right now. But Tim was actually asking about Jalen Hurts' potential rework deal. And he was kind of like lukewarm. And I'm like, and then later when it was clarified, then he was extremely effusive about Jalen Hurts, which again is ironic considering the story that came out this morning a little while ago. So, but I mean, I don't know if Jalen has a bigger fan in town, and he's got a lot of fans, but Jeffrey Lurie loves Jalen Hurts. A little more cautious on Jalen Carter. So that was interesting to me just because it was
very different tunes though, John. You're right on the two Jalens. Yeah. I mean, it was like stark opposites.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what stuck out most to me. I don't know about others. And then the other, the AJ stuff. AJ's an Eagle. It's almost Marshall Faulk at the Super Bowl. I'm here because I don't want to be fined or whatever he said. It's and now that you're going to get more context with the ESPN piece, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to move forward with AJ Brown because I don't think he wants to be here, and I don't think he's going to be happy if he is forced to be here.
All right, Jay. I think a lot of our listeners this morning, all right, I want to thank them all for being here this morning. Don't forget to hit the like button. I'm not sure how many of them have seen this ESPN article, John. I mean, you said I couldn't really find it in the States. The one article I clicked on, it says April 1st at 10 a.m. I don't know if they've drip released it and they wanted to come out at 10 a.m.
Could be April Fool's. April Fool's. It's not, though.
Africa.espn is where I'm reading it. Is it fair to categorize, John, this article here as a scathing report on Jalen Hurts? I mean, look, I read through most of it. I didn't see it until you tweeted it up at like 7:45, 7:50. So we didn't have a lot of time for me to read it before the program. But I mean, that fourth down play, the famous fourth down play versus the San Francisco 49ers in the playoff game, 4 verticals that everybody wanted Kevin Patullo out of town for. Well, evidently that was Jalen Hurts who made that call. A lot of more things included in this article, definitely worth a read. It's titled Inside Eagles 2025 Friction as Jalen Hurts stands at crossroads. What were some of your takeaways of this article, John? And then maybe just lay it out for the people who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that we've been talking about for years condensed down into one pretty exhaustive piece. And Jeremy Fowler and Tim did it and did a good job with it. So I don't know how much is new other than, it's the same stuff that we're debating that I think is kind of broken, the debate. I told you before the show. I don't know if people look at the right place to have the right debate. And the perfect example is, I've been talking for years and people don't like to hear it. The idea that coaches have been around for 15 to 20 years don't know simple motions or have to default to 4 verts because they don't know anything else is ludicrous on its surface. It's like, but the idea, and by the way, it's propped up by Nick Sirianni and the Eagles because, one thing about Nick is he's loyal and he's going to protect his guys and he's, not going to throw them under the bus. You talk about the Green Bay game, the stupid Green Bay game, the stupid Seattle game. Everybody's like, well, Nick Sirianni's an idiot. No, Jalen and AJ went rogue. And that's probably not even the right terminology because it's his, rights until it's taken away to change plays at the line of scrimmage. But when you make a mistake and you change the wrong play in a situation where if you just, run out the clock, the game's over, and you put your team in peril, it's a little bit more serious of an offense. So, but the idea to blame it on the coaches who, again, have been in this profession is ludicrous at the core. But fans don't buy the names. They don't buy the jerseys of coaches. They buy the jerseys of players. And the quarterback is the number one player on every team. And Jalen Hurts is very successful. And there's a lot of good stuff with Jalen Hurts, as I try to point out constantly. And I think it's silly to try to change him and morph him into this offense, which, again, I think will be further borne out when people get to read this story. But I think the debate is broken. And if you look at Kellen Moore, there's a lot of Kellen Moore stuff. You look at Kellen Moore before he got to Philadelphia. You look at Kellen Moore after Philadelphia, and obviously he's in a rebuilding situation, so that you factor that in. But the idea that motion is some kind of cure-all, guess what? The Philadelphia Eagles and Kellen Moore's never been more successful from a team perspective. So, so much of it is the debate is off base to begin with. And when you're off base, I always say, don't argue somebody else's premise because you're going to lose. So when you start off on a faulty foundation, it's not going anywhere. And that's kind of where I am. But the thought that, the Eagles offense could be this great wheeling day. How many times have you heard me say this? If it just wasn't for Kevin Patullo, or it just wasn't for Brian Johnson, or we can just get Kellen Moore, and you're watching,
or Nick Sirianni for that matter.
He gets Nick Sirianni. And you're watching Kellen Moore, and the passing offense is just as ugly last year as this year. This past season might have been more ugly, to be honest. But you had Saquon in 2,500 yards in your back pocket and ultimate team success. So, the idea it can just, we got great talent, so we can do this. No, it's not how it's going to work. And that's why my concern as players descend from where they were at one time is it's only going to become increasingly difficult. And if you lean away from what the quarterback does well, which seems to be the idea, almost forcing him to the point of trying to develop him that way, I think it's going to get worse.
We'll see what happens. John, what'd you make of the four verticals call? I know that's a small thing to you because you have you see the game from a little bit of a different perspective than just dumbing it down to one fourth down play call at the end of a playoff game. But that was a big topic of discussion in Philadelphia for a long time after that game, John. And Kevin Patullo fell on the sword, man, for that thing. And now it's come out in this article, which I think is the new piece of information in there, or at least one of the new pieces of information, that Jalen Hurts made that call for four verticals on fourth down versus the Niners. What do you make of it?
Well, there's a lot of context to that. He suggested it. So again, Kevin Patullo could overrule him, and Nick Sirianni can overrule them both. So I do think it's not fair to frame it as Jalen made the call, but that as we talk about collaboration, it's a real thing. Your season's on the line. You want your quarterback comfortable, and that's what he was comfortable with. Would I have overruled him? Yeah. Now I'm more of execute on second and third down, and you're fine. So anytime you're fourth, what was that? 4th and 13, whatever it was.
4th and 11, I think. Yeah.
You're behind the sticks. That's always, and you're in a condensed area because you had been moving the football. So the field is condensed. That's a bad call. But I mean, it's what the quarterback wanted. So it's sort of like a Sophie's choice. And there was a small window for Dallas Goedert, but the ball had to come out like immediate. I mean, foot hit, bang, and maybe you have a chance. And that's not Jalen's strength. And he waited too long, and there's 3 defenders there, and it looks terrible. But yeah, I mean, I've seen Green Bay do that for years, and you're getting a guy from Green Bay. I mean, 4 Burts is like Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, 4-seam fastball. I mean, that's been very successful for them over the years. So I thought that was overblown, but yeah, it's what he's comfortable with.
I won't tell you guys what to think of the article, but I will give you a little bit of an excerpt from it as we talk about this Jalen Hurts stuff here. Here's an excerpt. It says this: though there is plenty of blame to spread, Hurts has had a hand in the offense becoming calcified, according to several team sources who spoke to ESPN on condition of anonymity. I don't know if I said that right.
Anonymity.
He has pushed back on changes that would diversify the scheme, sources said, including when it comes to him going under center more. He has shown a reluctance to let it rip at times, particularly against zone coverage. He diverts from the game plan and changes play calls to what some feel is an excessive degree.
Yeah, the change in the play calls, I mean, that's based on results that I always talk about. So if you talk about Seattle, if you talk about Green Bay, when you make, kill shots and they go poorly, looks bad. Now imagine if the kill shot worked, then he's a hero. So I kind of that part's not as important to me. The calcified part is the more important part, which I think is 100% true. He doesn't like to turn his back to the defense, which was also mentioned in the piece somewhere, which is 100% true. And that's what you're doing with play action a lot of the time. So all of that is certainly, confirmation of what we've known for a while. And I don't know if it's a bad thing, unless you, again, start from the foundation of you have to play quarterback in a certain way, which I do not think, and as an old guy, I'm surprised I'm the open-minded one. I do not think is the case, especially in the modern NFL. I think there's a lot of ways to play the position now. It's not 1982. where everybody played the position the same way. And they used to change guys with athleticism and say, hey, you got to go play receiver or you got to go play running back. Now, often it starts in high school. You put the best athlete at quarterback and let them go. And you've had this influx of dual threat quarterbacks, and there's good and there's bad to it. Same thing. But look, I'm of the belief you take advantage of the strengths of the player you have, and the Eagles have done that pretty successfully, which is why I'm kind of perplexed why they're moving off that after a season, which I think is tied to more than anything else, the health of the offensive line. So I'm like, why are you throwing the baby out with the bathwater when the offensive line didn't play like the offensive line? My mentality, I said, when I say they act like a 5-win team, my mentality is, all right, let's get these guys healthy or let's rebuild this offensive line. Do whatever you have to do and then ride it again. That would be my mentality.
Is there a line of thinking, though, that they're too reliant on having a top offensive line? I mean, John, all things considered, the offensive line was not that bad last year. Now, it wasn't normal Eagle offensive line, but they were like the number 2 rated pass blocking offensive line. Now, that's not everything, and if you don't trust PFF, maybe you don't believe that ranking, but they were they were graded pretty highly, John. I mean, do you think it's fair to say our offense shouldn't be so reliant on the offensive line being damn near perfect every single game? Does that make sense?
No, I think, and as good as they were in 2024, they weren't perfect, but I get your point. No, and I say all the time, the margin of error is smaller. That's 100% true. And nobody's saying don't evolve naturally. He has evolved naturally.
Yeah, he has. I just wonder if the league has caught up to the simplified offense that the Eagles run, and maybe that's other stuff that they are neglecting or do not want to run would help them.
I honestly think the league has never caught up to a simplified offense in history if you execute it well. Jimmy Johnson Cowboys, the best example. There's nothing anybody could do. Nothing. Simplest offense ever. 3-4 running plays, bunch of vertical routes with receivers who were monsters, play action, accurate quarterback. Everybody knew what was coming. Everybody. You flip it to defense and you say Tony Dungy's Tampa defense specifically, which John Gruden won with. Simplest defense maybe ever created. Like I would always joke, it's never a good thing when Peyton Manning can tell you in March where everybody's going to be lined up on every play. But that's what you could do with Tampa, with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and John Lynch and Rondé Barber and those guys. He could tell you in March where they'd line up. Didn't matter.
Well, that Dallas offense you referenced had a pretty damn good offensive line too.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if you execute it, nobody's catching up to it. They know what's coming, but they're not catching up to it.
But you have to maintain a Hall of Fame offensive line every year. Not that easy to do.
Well, I said the margin of error is not, but you take advantage of the shelf life. And that's not to say you can't evolve inside of that and get better at the stuff that you need to get better at. What I'm saying is you don't take somebody who excels in one style of football and then wake up and say, fuck that. I'm sick of this baby. Let's throw it out. It's kind of morbid, but that's the expression. Then change the quarterback. If you want to go play action.
Well, if you listen to Jeffrey Lurie yesterday, they're not changing the quarterback.
Exactly.
Good stuff. All right, we got Mike Gill in the green room. We'll talk more about this throughout the show today. I want to welcome everybody for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button. I know some people are not going to be happy about this article. They are going to shit on it. The anonymous sources, I'm already seeing it pop up in the chat. I see a couple people saying, F that damn article. So it is what it is. Guys,
F that damn article. Fuck the messenger. Fuck him.
Don't shoot the messenger. It is what it is, folks. Let's go to Mike Gill, who's set to join us right here on Birds 365. You guys can follow him at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe to his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show and listen to him on 97.3 ESPN down the shore, the best program in all of South Jersey. Mike, welcome to the program, my friend. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. You mean in April Fool's Day? That's not a joke, the article?
No joke there, Mike. I'm not a jokester, Mike. You know, I leave that for everybody else.
That is a very that is a very extensive joke, if it's a joke.
I feel that this team generally gets a bombshell article like this, once every 4 to 5 years, where it hits a peak and then things just slowly start to unravel, and it's like, well, they just won the Super Bowl, and it's 2 years later, you're like, well, that was 2 years ago. Look at now. And you're thinking, well, do you really want to have to blow the whole thing back up again? Because, I mean, if you're saying that the quarterback essentially doesn't want to learn new tricks, I always sports are such an interesting thing. These guys get paid so much money that you really can't tell them what to do. They work their whole lives to get to a spot in sports that now they no longer want to do the actual thing to continue to get better. It's like, I've made it. And he's an interesting story because he's the coach's son, and that's always been the thing. It's like, but when do you get to this level where you're like, I made it and you're not telling me anything? I don't want to get any better. I don't want to change anything. This is the way we're doing it, whether you like it or not. The whole evolution of sports has just gone off the rails someplace. It's very frustrating when you read stuff like this.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's as damning as people will take it. I think it's more damning to the ideas of maybe people that sort of build a theory based on a foundation that's shaky, is how I described it. In other words, look, I don't think Jalen Hurts is, and it's funny because at times he's described as, a coach's kid. He likes hard coaching. He wants hard coaching. And then at other times it's like, well, he won't do this. He won't do that. I think it's more he's not comfortable doing this, and he's been very successful doing something else. So the question is, I'm pretty good at this, and I don't really like this. Is that rare with great players?
That's fine to say, but to almost the way that it seemed to me almost is that you're unwilling to try it. You're unwilling to even see if it's something that you can incorporate. I don't want to do it. I have no interest, almost I have no interest in evolving. I'm good with what I'm doing. It's like Ben Simmons. I don't need to shoot. I'm still an all-star. I'm still scoring 18 points a game. I don't need to learn how to shoot because I'm still he would say stuff like, I'm still an all-star. And people would say, yeah, but you could be an elite player if you incorporated this. Well, I don't need to. And this is almost like what you're hearing here is I won a Super Bowl doing this. I don't need to do that. And it's do you want to win one Super Bowl? I know that sounds selfish. That almost sounds like, well, that's cool. You won your cute little one Super Bowl. Do you want to win another one, or do you want to just be the guy that won one? And it's I don't know how you wouldn't be unwilling to just listen and say, okay, let's incorporate this. Let's see if it's something, to say that I'm uncomfortable doing it. Why? Why are you uncomfortable doing it? You've never tried it before.
Mike, the irony of today's report, of today's article that's come out, and you bring up that it feels like one of these comes every 4 or 5 years. I would say it feels like one comes every 1 to 2 years. But
Maybe.
The irony of today's is yesterday the owner spoke at the meetings and spoke almost as glowingly as you can possibly speak about the quarterback of the team right from the owner. And then I wake up this morning and I read this article and I'm like, is the owner? Is he naive to it? Does he not believe it? Does he have a different perspective on it? I mean, how do you kind of reason those two things where you read this article on one hand, which seemingly comes across as scathing on Jalen Hurts, and then the owner who, for lack of a better word, loves Jalen Hurts?
Yeah. Well, listen, if you're the owner of the football team, Jalen Hurts is probably everything you want in the face of the franchise, right? He's never in trouble. He barely talks. I mean, that's one thing I think is the interesting part here, is that you have a franchise quarterback who to the fan base is you can't connect with the guy. Normally you have a franchise quarterback and he's the face of the team and he's everywhere. He can't not be seen. And the connection with that guy is with the fan base so great. So maybe behind closed doors, Lurie is saying, look, I got this guy. He's great. He never gets in trouble. He's everything you want in a quarterback. But on the outside, we don't see that because he's just so stoic, right? Like you picture these franchise quarterbacks and you've got, Brady and Montana and, guys who are just always in the limelight, and Hurts is so opposite of that. So Lurie, I think, likes the perception of who he has as his quarterback. But you might say, does he not know this stuff's going on? I don't know, man. I don't know what it's like in that building. I don't know what it's like. Is he there every day? I think he's a pretty hands-on guy, right? He's not one of these guys that takes his helicopter and goes flying someplace else.
Yeah, he was talking about, he's texting Howie at 4 a.m. about the long snapper.
So I got to imagine if Hurts is he could be the teacher's pet. The way the story puts it out is that he's uncoachable and other people see it and they're frustrated by it. And Lurie maybe doesn't look at it as this big of a deal because he has success and maybe it's a very tough, we've all kind of seen these things, in our own lives of like, man, how does the guy who's in charge not see what a phony this guy is? Now, I'm not calling Jalen Hurts a phony, but I'm saying like maybe the other guys are saying, how are they not seeing what this guy's doing to the locker room here? Because he's so charming.
That's always interesting to me, and that's why I kind of throw that stuff. There was one team source who said poor body language, not always bought in, not the most coachable, and the players notice. So
if I'm judging Jalen Hurts just of what I see on a television screen, that's it. I've never met Jalen Hurts. I've never been in the building with Jalen Hurts. I don't know anything about the guy. I would say this guy's very hard to connect with, like very hard to connect with as an observer. Then I would say he seems unrelatable as a teammate. Like, I can't relate to you. You're almost too good, too goody two-shoe. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's kind of, and what I said, which didn't go over well, but I'll probably shouldn't say it again. But he's Carson Wentz in a different fashion. With Carson, it was more tough to connect with.
I remember the Wentz stuff and reading it and saying, I could see this being accurate. I mean, think about it. Carson Wentz grew up in North Dakota.
Yeah. Very religious.
How much diverse interaction did he have in his life before he's now?
Well, I think it was more. It was more about the religion when it comes to Carson, but
still, like that. But that's all encompassing. That's his life is the religion, and he's very boxed into an area that just doesn't get exposed to a lot. Now you're dropped into a locker room with guys that are coming from all over the country, and they're looking at this guy and saying, I can't relate to you at all. And he's saying, well, I can't relate to you at all. Like, the disconnect is obvious in that situation. Hurts, the disconnect there seemingly is he's not connectable. He's not willing to open up.
He's aloof. I've been saying that term for how long, Zander? He's aloof.
Now,
if you go to Webster's, aloof could say poor body language, not always bought in, not the most coachable, and players notice. That's the definition of aloof.
So you see him and you're around him. When I see him on television responding to questions, I don't get aloof from his answers, meaning like I just feel that he's just so serious all the time, and people can't connect with that. One of the things in my business, there are guys who are straight talking sports. That's all they do is they talk sports. That's a very niche audience. There are people that say, well, that guy talks sports. I like him. There are very few of those people. And you say, well, why is the guy that gets the afternoon spot, he don't know anything about sports? he's more relatable. You can connect with him. So the other guy might know more about sports, but the other guy is self-deprecating. He's a little bit more relatable. He lets you in on his life a little bit more. Hey, I went out with my buddies the other night. We had a beer. That guy gets higher ratings than the guy on Saturday morning who just tells you the Eagles run a 34 defense. And while there's a group of people who really respect that guy and like that guy, the clown in the afternoon
sounds like you're describing me. I'm not the clown in the afternoon.
But you would be a guest, John. You are a great guest. You're a great information person. Yeah. On my show, when we first introduced football at 4, it sounded ridiculous at first. Like, we're going to talk football every single day.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, we're pulling 20 ratings because I could give a little levity. You give the information, and it works. That's what Hurts needs, the levity. He needs, a little bit of self-deprecation here and there. Hey, I threw that ball. It slipped out of my fingers. He gives you nothing. No personality. No look at who he is.
True. That part's true. That part is true.
But I think it also is true. It's seemingly true. I don't know this. I'm not. Don't take me at my word on this one. Like, Andy Reid was very stoic in public, but the reports were behind closed doors. He was the class clown.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not the reports on Jalen Hurts. It's not like he goes up on the podium and tells you blah, 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 blah. And then behind closed doors, I messed with all those guys out there. No. And that's where I think he is just an unrelatable guy to the other 52.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, not all, but that's fair. He is not relatable to everybody. But I never look, when you get 90 people together, I always say, look at your own life. Yeah, the next 90 people, and some people might not even know 90 people. I use 90 because that's an off-season roster.
Yeah.
You're not going to get 90 people to get along in any walk of life. Any walk of life. It just doesn't exist. So not everybody, to me, that's not important to, it's great to have everybody in assume. I guarantee it doesn't matter who you think the best leader is. You see, think about Michael Jordan and all the stories about him afterwards, and just how, relentless he was, and just how off-putting he was.
Look at him on The Last Dance, though, John. Look at him on The Last Dance. He's in the locker room. He's having cigars with the guys. He's messing around with the old gentleman who was like the security guard. Like, he was a relatable guy to some extent, but on the court, he rode people so hard that they almost resented him.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a balance there. You don't hear anything about, and maybe this is a good thing. I'm not criticizing Jalen because his personal life isn't out there, but I'm sure most people didn't even know he had a girlfriend. And then all of a sudden he shows up with a woman. You're like, is he married? Like, what's his story? Nobody knows anything about this guy. And he's a Super Bowl champion quarterback in a town that kind of likes football.
What'd you make of the fourth down play call? That was a big one, Mike. Everybody talked about at the end of the year. Well, now it comes out Jalen. Jalen's the one who recommended the 4 verticals on 4th and 11 to end the season, or whatever the hell it was.
At the time, everybody's ripping Petula about this.
Yeah, that's why I keep bringing it up.
By the way, can I get some apologies?
I agree. I think it was pretty clear. Like, we're acting like Jalen Hurts was in the circle and he didn't say a word. Like, he had no input on that play. Get the hell out of here. That's why I said, Petula was just a sacrificial lamb of every other coordinator, handcuffed by what he has to do because of who his quarterback is. And we say this all the time, and it's, not to mention, you guys were talking about offensive line right before I came on. The offensive line wasn't where it normally was. So then he was handcuffed by his run game not being what it normally was, because normally he'd say, listen, I can at least lean on that to do what I want to do. But I didn't think there was no part of me that didn't think that Jalen Hurts wasn't standing in that circle and didn't say, that's the play we want to go with.
Yeah, but you can't overrule it, to be fair to Jalen. That's where Kevin Patullo and even Nick Sirianni has the final call. He can overrule it. So
Yeah,
I
but this
do
goes
think,
back to where we are in sports, where the guy making all the money, you're going to tell him, sorry, dude, your opinion, boop, not working here today. Like, yeah, maybe if you're the ultimate badass coach and you tell that franchise quarterback to go kick rocks, but I don't know how many people have the stones to do that. Maybe the greats.
oh, well, yeah, I think it's very important that people know that it was suggested by Jalen Hurts. And I don't even think, to me, the bigger issue is what happened on second and third down, not fourth and desperation. Yeah, fourth and desperation is fourth and desperation. And it didn't work. So I think, but you know how it works, Mike.
Yeah.
Everybody's, fourth down season. Who cut? Nobody even remembers what happened on third down. It's execute. You're not even in that position. But
yeah, this stems back to how many plays are even in. Now, I heard what you were saying before. Simple. Look, there's a reason why Army, Navy, and the military academies run the same 4 plays, because they don't have the talent, but they also execute them perfectly because they're so disciplined. And that's what makes the military academies football programs competitive. They don't have the talent, but they execute one play and run it in 4 different variations. It's the same play all day long, and it's coming, and you can't stop it. Simple sometimes is better, no question about it. The question is, how many variations do the Eagles have if Jalen Hurts, in the professional level, that says, well, this is what we're doing because this is what our quarterback only wants to do. And he's now been on tape for 5 years. We have a sense of what he really likes to do. And unless he's really, really elite, we have figured you out, buddy. So you better, like Ben Simmons, find another peel of the onion if you want to evolve to the next level. So, yeah, you might be a good quarterback. And a lot of Jalen's success is a lot of off-script plays. Now, he does fine in moments, but there are times when the offense really, really struggles. When they ask him to, hey, can you make a throw over the middle of the field? He might connect on a deep ball, and a lot of times that's a chance play. That's not a skill play. I mean, I'm not saying it lacks skill, but if you're just throwing a 50-50 ball up and you happen to have A.J. Brown, there's sometimes that thing's going to come down and work. So what is the evolution of Jalen from quarterback of where he started to Super Bowl champion to now we're in this next phase of his career?
And I think this next phase is the most interesting part. I mean, you have Sean Mannion coming in, and he's apparently implementing a McVay, Shanahan type of system that's got motion and under center play action and all these different things. I mean, how do you reason with that coming off an article like this where apparently Jalen went, butted heads with Kellen Moore over the same type of concepts?
And John, I would ask you, you'd probably, Kellen, you've been in the room with him. He seems like a tough guy to butt heads with.
Yeah, he's not a disagreeable guy.
Right. But again, this goes off of the perception of what you see from me. I'm just reading the body language and what I'm getting here. It just seems like kind of an all shucksy kind of guy. Like it almost seems crazy to see Kellen Moore in a position of disciplined power where he has to be the iron fist guy. That's why, as a head coach,
that's the thing where he will stand up for himself. That's the thing,
right? That's the thing. I don't. You don't see that version of him in his offensive coordinator availability. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you're only reading, much like Hurts. You're only seeing what you see right here on the box. What do you get behind the scenes is completely different.
Ironically,
it sounds like Kellen Moore is giving you something different behind the scenes, where Jalen Hurts is giving you much of the same.
Ironically, the all shucks, I like that. Kevin Patullo was more of the all shucks guy than Kellen Moore, even though it probably didn't come across like that. Kellen was much more, entrenched and probably confident in his abilities as a coordinator.
And I guess Kellen is to the generation that he's coaching, many probably do remember his collegiate success. He was a very high profile.
Yeah, he's a big time college quarterback, and that plays into it as well. He's used
absolutely.
To
That's what I mean. Yeah. Kellen Moore was a big time, very successful collegiate quarterback, and I'm sure that the guys he's coaching can probably say, "I do remember this guy playing." I think that has something to say with. All
right, here's why I want to boil it down for you, Mike, because this bothers me, and I don't understand it. Well, I think I do understand it, but I don't know why other people can't understand it. You never ever hear a traditional quarterback asked to play like a dual threat quarterback for obvious reasons, I think. Why is it always the other way around? Why does everyone want to turn Jalen Hurts into Brock Purdy, but not Brock Purdy into Jalen Hurts?
I'm not sure that people want to see Jalen become that. I see what you're saying. I don't know that the fans care that he evolves into whatever man.
I'm talking about. Forget about names. I'm talking about turning his back to the defense, which he's not comfortable with. There's traditional play action, traditional quarterback play, as opposed to what he's done, which, by the way, has been more successful than the guys they want to turn him into.
But I think that the fans, I'm just talking about with the fans, I don't think they care that he becomes whatever quarterback that you're envisioning. I think the frustration with him is that he doesn't want to be the quarterback that he even is. You know, hey, man, take off and run. Take off and use your legs.
Well, that I agree with.
Third down
You're
and
100%
7.
Right.
Right. That's where I think people – I don't think they care so much if he turns into, you know, whoever, like a statuesque pocket passer. It's more be the guy that made you the champion. And he is devolving from that guy. Third down and 7. There's the first down. Go get the sticks. You know, the game against the Chargers. Herbert takes off on 3rd and 7. He gets that first down. And you're saying, well, why can't my guy, you know, who used to do that all the time? I think the fans are looking and saying, you've devolved instead of evolved.
All right. So cut the fans out of it. Because I agree with you. He needs to, and you know, put that running part back into his game to be the same type of player. I agree with that 100%. Why are the Eagles hell-bent on Sean Mannion and play action and all? That's all they're talking about. Why?
Maybe Hurts has told them, I'm not interested in being that guy anymore. I don't want to run. So, okay, if you're not going to do that, we need to add more layers to the passing game, because what the passing game has been, if you're not willing to run, is not good enough.
Well, that's fair. And at that stage, if he won't run and he won't become a play action passer because he's not comfortable, then you got to look for another quarterback.
Right. Like if I say, you've been in the league, Jalen, now for what, 2021? So he's going into his 6th season here. You were successful in large part because you used your legs, the downfield throw. Guys were open because our run game was so good. Well, our line is not as good anymore. You're not running as much. People I've on tape now for 5 years running this offense. They're starting to do things that are shutting down some of the things that you had success in doing. So now we need to show them something different. If you're not willing to do that, we might have a crossroads here.
I think we've reached the crossroads. I think if he
when the long form article gets approved, you know, you don't see long form reporting anymore. When the long form reporting gets approved, that's when we've hit the crossroads, right?
Yeah. Well, my look, if
in a world where they tell you 250 words, get out as many articles a day as you can.
Oh my God!
He's giving you a 25,000 word article. You know what I mean?
Yeah, don't even start with me with that. I'll go on a tangent for 6 hours. That is a downfall of society. But I encourage everybody to read the article. And you're right, Mike. Look, if if they're doing this because he won't be the player he was, because of whatever reason, because of health or wanting to extend the shelf life, whomever, if you don't put that +1 back in the running game, they cannot succeed the way they played previously, and they cannot succeed the way they want to play now because the quarterback doesn't like to do it. So what are we doing? To me, it's like, what do you do? What? You're just delaying the inevitable, which is another quarterback and a different coach and a different system and rebooting the whole thing.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times money, as we talked about, we get to a spot where the money takes over. The money takes over for the good and the bad. The money allows Hurts to have the say that he wants. It also locks him in to where the team can't really do much with him.
Yeah,
So
I'm not saying
damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
I'm just saying from a football perspective. You're right from a money perspective, not the time, but the point is the clock has started and something's got to give, whether it's him turning into a pocket passer or it's him turning back into what he was when he incorporated the running game as part of his skill set.
Well, and as you get older, I can't imagine the running part of your game is going to evolve more. That's usually going to decrease, and that's the problem with the running quarterback who flashes brilliance with their legs. What's the shelf life on those guys?
Well, the shelf life is shorter, no doubt about it. But right. I don't think he's still only 27 years old. He's going to be 28 in August.
That. Yeah. Most of these quarterbacks are playing 37, 38, 39 years old. So you would think Jalen Hurts has another 8 to 10 years left in him to play. And maybe he's cognizant of that as well and trying to extend his shelf life by not taking off as much, but in order to do that, he's going to have to evolve in the other areas of the game.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But I don't know if they're going about it the right way. In fact, I would say pretty.
Let me ask you this question. We haven't talked a lot about this. Everybody's talking about A.J. Brown. Is he going to be traded? Does he not want to be here? Does Jalen Hurts want A.J. Brown here?
Yeah, I think he does.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think he does. It's
like nobody's talked about, everybody has hinted at they might trade him June 1st. Does he want to be here? Do they even want to trade him? But if we say that Jalen Hurts has so much say, have they said, Jalen, can you coexist with A.J. Brown again? What would his answer be?
I would say he doesn't. I don't want to say he doesn't care, but I don't think it's top of his list either way.
Like if you're Jalen Hurts and you are wondering, is my offense or is my play going to be better with or without him? I wonder what.
Well, I think he knows it's going to be better with him, and that's part of the reason why. But I also think he's realizing that. Can they
coexist in the same locker room?
Exactly. Well, it's not even personally. They don't get in fights. They're not the silent treatment. They were close. They're not as close. It's just, the guys constantly when things. And by the way, AJ's right. The ball doesn't come out on time. That's all AJ has said. The ball. Well,
how much of this report is what AJ is mad at? The stuff that's highlighting what Jalen.
99% of it. But it is what it is. At this point, I don't know. Like we might be in the death throes of the Jalen Hurts era, if this is what it's come to. But I don't. Ultimately, I've said from the start, I think Sean Mannion will get here. And he will see that, hey, this isn't going to work. And he will morph just like Kellen Moore did. And maybe that works. And maybe they're successful from a team standpoint if all the other stuff aligns. And the only thing that cures this is winning. And I mean winning at a high level, meaning Super Bowl. And then everything's.
You really put yourself in a box. You really put yourself in a box as if the only thing that you can do to prove I mean, listen, everybody trying to win the Super Bowl is the ultimate for everybody. But you really put yourself in a box that if that's the only thing, like,
well, I know, but that's.
Go tell another organization that you've won double-digit games, back-to-back divisions, been in the playoffs for 5 years, and
well, I know.
And tell them that that's not a successful.
You know what, Bob? I don't know if you saw Jeffrey's comments yesterday because they're long and you got to get through some stuff. But what the biggest thing that bothered me about Jeffrey's comments yesterday was he was running down Nick. He got the Nick Sirianni question. He was running down Nick's resume, which you just ran down, which is pretty fucking impressive. And he said something like, be realistic. He's doing a great job. It's like, you're the guy who was thinking about firing him when he was 2-2.
Well, he can also admit that I have irrational thoughts too. I mean, he's human. I'll give him credit for that, right?
Well, that's true. That's true. But don't tell the rest.
What's the line of demarcation of you have a tremendous – now, they have won a Super Bowl, so that's already checked off and out of the way.
Yeah.
What's the line of demarcation, though, where you have a ton of success and then it's time to move on because you're not reaching the pinnacle?
Well,
like Baltimore won a Super Bowl with Harbaugh, and he had been there, 18 years, and they never were able to kind of get back there. And I guess they reached that line of demarcation. How long was that, though, from the last Super Bowl? You know,
they don't have the patience of Baltimore. They don't have the patience of Pittsburgh. That's already we already know that. I remember sitting in a bar in Minneapolis, and you were there. Well, the hotel bar, if you can call it that. And I remember saying, it might have been Bob Ford. I remember saying, well, Doug's got a lifetime dispensation card. It turns out, what was that? 3 years?
Well, yeah. I mean, would they have stuck with Doug had he acquiesced?
Maybe, but the point, I'm like, well, remember at the time, Super Bowl 52, remember the angst of this fan base. Remember, they had never had, that was number one. So that was more important. That was the first Lombardi trophy in Eagles history. And that's all anybody ever wanted. And you remember the parade, and there's people bringing out the remains of their fathers who passed away and loved the Eagles, and they're dumping their ashes on the parade. It was absurd, the relief and to get to that, and it lasted for 10 seconds. So the shelf life is very small.
There's a reason why lottery winners go broke.
That's true too. That's true. That's a good analogy. You get that at Mike Gill Show. Make sure you follow Mike on the X platform. 97.3 down the shore. Sports Bash 2 to 6.
Today's the day. First day, we're entering people to win Eagle Club Box tickets. Listen all day. We're giving you a chance to win Eagle 50-yard line Club Box tickets for a game.
Wow, that's a hell of a promo.
All right.
Yep.
Watch Jalen Hurts.
Actually.
Watch Jalen Hurts talk to the OC on the sideline.
Watch all that motion, which is the key to it all, Mike. The key to it all. More motion.
No doubt. All right, Mike. We appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining in today. We will talk to you again next week. Thank you, brother.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show. Great interview there with Mike Gill, per usual. Always a good segment talking to Mike Gill. Boy, Johnny Mac, not what I expected to be talking about here on a Wednesday morning after that article drops this morning. I'll ask you what I asked Mike. How do you reason with the two things that came out? It's like, I was doing my show prep last night, and I'm like, all right, we get the owners, glowingly speaking of Jalen Hurts, which is a good thing, and those. And then I wake up, and I'm like, whoa, now it's like a whole nother, the stark opposite type of content, kind of on an article that I don't know if you use the word scathing. I think it's kind of scathing.
I don't think it's scathing at all. I think it's
some people will.
Well, I know, but I kind of look at these things differently because I know what they're trying to do. But
what do you think? What do you think this is trying to do here?
Explain what's going on with the Eagles and their shift and their strange shifting and That's what you're supposed to do, gather information. So I think they did a very good job, number one. Number two, it's really tying together a bunch of stuff that people don't want to admit and has been talked about in the past. And because it's very difficult for fans to insult their favorite players or criticize. Not an insult, is not the right word. And it's easy to criticize the Kevin Patullos and the Nick Sirianni. So many times I've got shit on this show because I'm saying, think about it from just a common sense perspective, that guys have been coaching football for 20 years, don't understand motion, when you hear they have the route concepts of a high school team, and yet they win Super Bowls and go to Super Bowls. Well, what the fuck does that say about everybody else? If you're winning Super Bowls with the route concepts of a high school team, or do you think there might be a little bit more to it? A little bit more to it. And when you have a large sample size, as we do with Nick Sirianni in his past, and different offenses for different quarterbacks in Indianapolis, he has shown a demonstrated history of changing his offense to shift into the strengths of the quarterback he has, whether it's Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, or Jalen Hurts. He morphs, and he was taught that by Larry Karras, and I give this story all the time. Larry's the one who told him, why are you talking about the offense when you don't know who your players are? Like, you hear all these people talk with such convictions over Sean Mannion and what he's going to do. How could you talk about that with conviction? How? First of all, he's a bad coach if he's coming in and he's saying, I'm doing this no matter what, which, by the way, never happens. Never happens. And that's my confidence that this might work, because if he comes in and has that philosophy of, I'm doing this come hell or high water, it's not going to fucking work.
Well, the way it was written in the ESPN article is that it's happening, and it's almost a way to make Jalen change. That's kind of how it read to me. Doesn't mean I'm right, and maybe that's a biased thought, but it
is happening, but it's already happened, and they changed in the process. They went in with the same mindset with Kellen Moore, and they changed. So they're trying to do it, and I've said pretty consistently, there's nothing wrong with that in the offseason. I don't care. Do whatever you want. You got 9 weeks in the offseason, OTAs. Work on all the motion. Work on that stuff. You're going to see a bunch of stories about it. A bunch of this is going to happen. Get to training camp. Continue to prove. Are you getting better at it? Where are you? Maybe it works. Who knows? I'm an odds guy, so I'm betting against it, but maybe it works. But if it doesn't work, and you just keep doing it for the sake of doing it, to prove what? Or you want to take advantage of the quarterback you have? What makes more sense to people? Now, again, you have this hardcore, what pumper Jalen type things. You got these hardcore, well, he can do anything. Well, he can do anything. Now, I realize that those people are off the reservation. There's nobody in the history of the game that can do everything. He can do anything. No, from Tom Brady on down, whoever you think the best quarterback, you build around the strengths of that quarterback. They can't do everything. Tom wasn't the most mobile guy in the world. So guess what? You're not running a shitload of RPOs with Tom Brady. Why would you? Like, I don't know why that's a controversial statement at all. Build around the strengths of the quarterback you have. And I think Sean Mannion, ultimately, if he's a half as smart as everybody says he is, I think he'll do that.
Well, some people might believe that those strengths are, or lack of strengths are the reason that the offense has struggled the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, the last couple of years, we're talking about the passing offense specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they won the Super Bowl in one of those years. And it's never, yeah, to me, I've already come to the realization it's never going to be a high flying passing offense. Other people will not come to that conclusion, which is fine. You don't have to. But I'm saying if you believe that this can be a high flying passing offense, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to
Well,
call you
forget
nuts.
that. Can it be a great running offense again?
It better be, because they
Well, I think that's what people's concern is. I mean, you talk about 24, they won the Super Bowl. Damn right they did. And they also did it with one of the best offensive lines in the history of the game, as the GM who texted you said. You know?
yeah, and
That's
one
is
of the
that
best
sustainable is my question, you
and
know?
one of the best rushing offenses. It's very small margin. I've said that from the start. I said it
Yeah.
during the season. It's a very
Yep.
small margin of error. But I mean, that's the best way to win here right now. That style of football. Now you want to get better in the evolution of that style of football. You want to get more consistent when the passing game is there. Again, the ball's got to come out. But I mean, will it be better than last season? Yes, and I've said that pretty consistently. Because a bunch of guys had down years and they're going to bounce back from an individual standpoint. I believe that. With the exception of potentially Landon Dickerson, because I just don't know if he's going to be physically capable. But a bunch of guys had down seasons, and they're going to be hyper focused on bouncing back from a personal perspective, and that'll build for the entire team. So I think that's going to happen. Number one, and then then can you be legitimate Super Bowl contender? That'll come down to the boring stuff, the execution, can't be in 2nd and 12 every freaking drive.
Right. Damn right. Yep.
And that'll come to the boring stuff that nobody likes or nobody wants to talk about, which is ultimately what happens in every game. And that's execution. But the idea that Sean Mannion is some fix-all, I think Jeff McClain had a good article from the meetings as well. It's like they didn't, which I've been talking about for weeks. They're not betting on the coaching staff. They're betting on the players bouncing back. The veteran players back, because they're not changing anything on offense except the coaches. They're betting on the players, the Lane Johnsons, the Cam Jurgens, the Jordan Mailatas, Dallas Goederts, Devontae Smith, AJ if he's here, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts bouncing back to their previous performance levels. Is that realistic? Probably not. But that's what they're betting on.
Well, we'll see if it works out, Johnny Mac. A lot to talk, a lot of interesting stuff in that ESPN article, and obviously comes up right off the heels of that Jeffrey Lurie interview yesterday, post owners meetings, where Jeffrey Lurie glowing praise of Jalen Hurts, and then this article comes out. We talk about both things today. How do you reason with that, John? We talk about the owner praising him on one night, and then the kind of the article that comes out. I mean, it is what it is, but it is interesting to talk about both things in one day. It's like ironic.
Yeah. Before the article came out, that was what I was going to lead with, how striking the praise was for Jalen Hurts, and how sort of, I don't want to say it was negative, but it was very nondescript about Jalen Carter. I think it was noticeable. The two Jalens, him confusing them, and it just became, oh, Jalen Hurts. Well, but it just went into this basically the nicest thing anybody could say about anybody. So I mean, yeah, that's a powerful person to have in your corner for Jalen Hurts.
I mean, if you're Jalen Hurts, isn't that the only guy you need in your corner?
Yeah, pretty much. So I mean, that's a good sign for Jalen Hurts. And that will probably, it's as you know, that probably emboldens him to some of the things that were talked about in the article. Yeah. So I mean that probably emboldens him. And by the way, you know, we talk about too many yes men. Again, you go back to experience isn't everything. And it doesn't guarantee success, just like I always say youth doesn't guarantee innovation. Like everybody think, well, he's a young, doesn't guarantee. There's a bunch of new ideas. 99% of new ideas are shit. And every once in a while, you got a true innovator.
99, that's a big percentage there, J-Mac.
Well, I mean, I'm from a business perspective, most businesses, don't go well.
Very true, my friend. Yep.
That's where that comes from. But yeah, so the idea that experience is going to be a cure-all is not true. But the idea that youth is going to result in innovation is not real. So it ultimately comes down to the person. And again, maybe Sean Mannion is Bill Walsh reincarnated. I don't know. But the idea of a 33-year-old coming in to fix what's been a yes man situation is kind of weird to me. 33-year-old with no experience.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a quarterback who's emboldened by the owner, I'm going to run over that guy like a speed bump. I'm going to do what the fuck I want to do. What was that quote? The offense is going to look how I want it to look?
Yeah.
I'm going to run over that dude like a speed bump.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think Jeffrey Lurie had to approve I mean, he obviously did, but do you think he had any thoughts about the hiring of Sean Mannion with the way that you kind of framed it?
Yeah, he's got the ultimate say. When it comes to head coach and coordinators, he's got the ultimate. He's got to approve it.
So do you think it was intentional to let Nick hire a guy like that? Are they trying to put Nick on an island? Do you think anything into it like that or no?
No, I think he delegated to Nick, but ultimately he's got to sign off on it. But I think that is essentially what happened. But I don't think that was the plan to put him on an island. That was the result of the decision, which, because if this doesn't work, he's gone. Like, and most likely if he hired Mike McDaniel or Brian Daboll, same thing. But it's much easier to explain the hiring of Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll than Sean Mannion. It just is. They're, former head coaches with play calling experience. You're coming off a guy with no play calling experience. That was the whole thing. Do people forget when it started? Well, you got to have play calling experience. And then they go out and get a guy with less experience than the guy they just booted out the door. So the result of the decision put him on an island. But no, I don't think that was Jeffrey Lurie's plot or plan. In fact, I'm actually surprised how much autonomy they gave Nick when it came to the coaching staff.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if they did it intentionally. What's the easiest way to fire the Super Bowl winning head coach if it doesn't pan out? After 2 years after he won a Super Bowl, put him on an island. Make it obvious to why he had to do it.
Well, I don't think he cares.
He cares about optics, John.
I don't know. I don't. Like, he fired Doug. He's thinking about firing him 4 games into the Super Bowl season.
Come on, John. You know the Eagles organization cares about optics.
I don't think he cares about the coaching optics of. He's already done it. Why won't he do it again? Like I just brought up the Doug Super Bowl was more just important because it was number one, and because all this decades of yearning ended. Not to dismiss the second one, and they want to get a third one, where now it's commonplace almost. But the first one was just massive. I'm surprised how many people forget just the sense of relief and the sense of accomplishment and everything. For years, everybody, Eagles fans would be, Cowboys would talk about their time, and the Commanders, Redskins, blah, blah, and the Giants. Eagles don't have any. And then they finally got one. Yeah, I'm amazed. People forget. And he fired the guy. He fired his childhood friend, Joe Banner. That's why people say Howie will never get fired. Well, he demoted him once. I mean, he's going to fire the guy. It's just a matter of when.
Do you think the comments yesterday have altered your timeline on when you think a Jalen Hurts extension might be coming? Or whether it comes at all?
Well, I think they'd be smart to. Well, it has to come after next year. I mean, not, if you look at the contract, it has to come. So I think it would, especially with all the change and all the projected change. I think it would be smart to wait the year if you can. But again, everything affects everything else. If you need to do something, like if Myles Garrett comes available and you need to do something, you might have to do it quicker.
Well, a contract extension for Hurts would tie him to Philly through what? The next 4 or 5 years?
It's and they'll put a year on it, would be my guess. It's about manipulating the cap more than the extension part of it. They're fine from the standpoint he's under contract through 28. So they're fine from that point. But the guaranteed money is up in 2028. So you can really just wipe that off the books. That's meaningless and the guaranteed money in 2027 is only $22 million versus this year it's 51.5. So you see, once this year's over, like whether he's top 10 or he's 10th right now, or whatever he is, he's going to be way, way underpaid because most of that money is already gone. So you have to work something out if you want to move forward with the quarterback. The question is, you could probably wait a year if you wanted to. And I would, because they've already got their salary cap ducks in a row, because there is so much change. And if this does be a colossal shit in the bed, you can move off quicker. You don't want to think that way. That's the way I think as a pessimist. Maybe they're optimistic. And they say, well, Jeffrey, let's just get it done. I would wait because I don't think this is going to go well. So why do I want to get in deeper?
Well, I don't know. I just look at the owner. The owner seems like Jalen Hurts came up and he seemed to not even think about any of these things. Oh man, I love Jalen Hurts. 2 Super Bowl appearances, damn near MVP in 22, Super Bowl MVP in 24. I mean, the owner was, as you worded, he was glowing when talking about Jalen Hurts. Not so much Jalen Carter, but a lot more so Jalen Hurts.
Well, there is some performative part to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
He knows he's on camera. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure he has more honest discussions with Howie and Nick than he does when he's up there. So I don't think they have to do it, is all I'm saying. From my perspective, this is my perspective. There's so much uncertainty, so much projected change. Why not wait to see how it goes?
Right.
And if it goes well, yeah, give him tack on 2-3 years. But if it doesn't go well, wouldn't you like to have more flexibility to get the fuck out of it?
Absolutely. Here is Gary says this. Reading tea leaves in the article, is it possible that Jalen is calling plays he wants because he knows he's the only constant when it comes to play calling and consistency?
No. He's calling plays in the moment that he thinks are going to work. But, sometimes, you use the Seattle and Green Bay game as examples. You're going for the kill shot. And again, it's like, is that the right thing to do in this situation? No, it's not. Now,
where I think Gary has a point is, and I know you've pushed back on it all being on Patullo, but I don't know that Jalen ever showed any confidence in Patullo. And can we blame him? I mean, how many OCs has he had? So he might look at it as like, all of you are here today and gone tomorrow. And maybe that's where Gary has a point where.
Well, I think he's come to the conclusion. Look, that's the situation they're in. Guess what? Sean Mannion's probably going to be here for 1 year.
Right. History would tell you that's correct, John.
Because he's either going to win at a high level and somebody's going to go, oh, we got to get the new Sean McVay, or he's going to lose and it's going to be ugly. And they're not going to be patient, especially with somebody that young and that inexperienced if it goes really bad. So if you're a betting man, and Nick kind of talked about that in his at the coaches' breakfast with hiring Grizzard and Jared Johnson, you have more insurance if Sean does leave. So I mean, but there is no, and BLG's coming up. I mean, we've talked about this before in the past. Look around the league. There's no consistency at the coordinator position. The Eagles are a little bit worse than most because it's been every year, but it happens to everybody. There's
I get it. I'm just wondering, to Gary's point, if that's why Jalen's like, well, to hell with what you want. Call what I want. I'm going to be here. I'm the one that's going to be here year in and year out. Not you.
Well, look, it's not the 1970s. Quarterbacks are not calling plays on the field. You're generally given a play call with two choices. You kill from run to pass or vice versa. So I think it's overblown, as most things are, but everything is judged on results. And when he goes for the kill shot in Green Bay, it seems like a stupid decision. If it worked, everybody would have loved it. Same thing in Seattle. If it worked, great. Didn't work. So maybe he learns the life of an offensive coordinator, because nobody's judging play calls. They're judging play results.
Right. Good stuff, Gary. Thanks for the super chat, brother. We appreciate it. We got Brandon Lee Gouton set to join us right now here on Birds 365. BLG joins us. You can follow him on X at Brandon Gouton. Read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. Make an account, go and interact with the people over there. BLG, thanks for joining the program today, my friend. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
A lot to talk about, guys.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, was it April Fool's? That maybe not the best day to come out with ESPN. Our buddy Tim McManus, Jeremy Fowler involved as well. Pretty exhaustive piece. I assume you've gotten a chance to digest it. What'd you think? It's a lot of this stuff is what we've talked about, but to see it there all laid out. And I don't know. I think a lot of people think it's negative. I don't necessarily look at it as negative. I think it's a good explanation about what's been going on.
I agree. And I don't think it's a hit piece by any means, because it's pretty balanced. There's a lot of pushback on some of the critiques within the own article of Jalen there. So I think, point of view in there. And I think that kind of tells the story of like, there are certainly people who are probably pretty frustrated with Jalen Hurts. There are other people who are like, why are we frustrated? We're winning a lot. This is a really good thing. So, and the truth is, everything can be true. Like, more than one thing can be true here.
Oh yeah, I can tell you he's not frustrated. Jeffrey Lurie. I've never heard somebody talk that effusively about another human being.
Exactly.
It was unbelievable.
And his opinion matters most, right? So,
yeah, I mean, if you're Jalen, you might not give a rat's ass what anybody else thinks. That's the only guy you need in your corner, BLJ.
But obviously, with the passage of time here, if the results don't continue to be what they've been, and there are warning signs, I think it's fair to say, when you have a season like you did last year, the offense underperforming to that degree, if that were to happen again this year, and for similar reasons to be, the case, then, that's when Jeffrey Lurie might suddenly not be so effusive of Jalen Hurts at that point in time. So it is a big year in terms of the offense underperformed so much, and Jeffrey Lurie's not going to tolerate that for very long. And he's obviously not going to start with Jalen Hurts as the root of the problem, but eventually he might end up there if it continues to be a problem. And if not, and if the Eagles are going to continue to win and be on this great pace and Jalen Hurts plays well, then he's going to probably get another contract and put himself in a great position. So I do agree with the premise that it is like a crossroads kind of season.
What do you think it is, though? Do you think that's the truth, that it is partly on Jalen? I mean, the reason that the offense hasn't been able to, get to where they want to go. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie did say it, hey, we're not happy about what the offense going the other direction. Where do you put it on, BLJ?
Yeah, again, it's a matter of where I start. Like I don't start with Jalen Hurts here, but I do put a lot of it on him in the big picture, in part just because the Eagles do as well, in terms of how they pay him. Like, you don't pay him $250 million to be kind of like, oh, he's like the 10th biggest problem with the offense. No, that's not why you pay someone that money. And conversely, if the Eagles offense was playing well, no one would be like, well, okay, Jalen Hurts, he's like the 10th biggest reason why the offense is playing well. No, everyone would say he's like the MVP, or one of the very biggest reasons the offense is looking good, if that was the case. So, it works both ways there. I think Jalen has to be better than he was last season. I think that much is clear. And I think they're clear, at least, efforting from the coaching side to try to give him more tools. But it's up to him to embrace that at the same time.
Yeah, that's my biggest red flag with the piece, and the aspect that you mentioned the coaching staff is working to give him answers. Does he want those answers? Because it's pretty clear, and this further validates it. He's not that comfortable with turning his back to the defense. He's not that comfortable with a lot of motion, a lot of eye candy. And the Eagles have built their offense with that in mind. Now, by all indications, and Nick Sirianni said it again at the coaches' breakfast, they're going all in on this Shanahan-McVay style offense. Is this almost forcing the quarterback to evolve in a way, and should they be doing that?
I think they're certainly challenging him, and I think they should be after some of the results we saw last year. It is funny to me, all of this is not that incredibly dissimilar to what we heard about Carson Wentz.
I know, it's incredible. Yeah. It really is incredible.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? Is it a mere coincidence that it's, these two people who are very different in a lot of ways are the same? Or is it more of, do the Eagles have, like a quarterback problem in terms of like the how they quarterback environment problem, let's say, in terms of how the organization, treats that position and maybe handles that where maybe they feel a little too empowered and maybe have an outsized influence where they shouldn't. Now, part of that is, again, when you give them that contract, that kind of goes hand in hand with that. It also, I'm imagining a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL in similar places probably have strong opinions as well. I don't think just every top paid quarterback is like, no, I don't care what we run. Tell me what to do, coach, and I'll show up. Like, I think they probably have loud voices too, and I think that's some kind of context that can get missed here in the bigger picture. But so I think to tie a bow on that, I think the Eagles kind of have like, you know, a hand in this. They have to look at themselves in the mirror too. It's not just about the player.
What'd you make of the part where the infamous fourth, what was it, 4th and 11 or 4th and 13, whatever it was, in the 49er game? That was apparently the recommendation of Jalen Hurts. Well, Kevin Patullo, he took a lot of shit for that play call, BLG. What'd you make of that part of the report?
But even within that, there was a line about how like Jalen Hurts was apparently like responding maybe to something they talked about philosophically in that situation. So, I mean, yeah, that's like the crux of that conversation is that maybe that's a part of the problem with the offense all year. Is there's a lot of different voices, and you know, who at what point is someone getting their way? Maybe it's Jalen a lot, but also like. The coaching staff, what are they doing? If it's just as simple as Jalen gets his way, like how are they helping? Like, does Nick Sirianni not have enough credentials, certainly at this point in time, to push back? And because, like I feel like the coaching staff needs to it. You can't let the quarterback run roughshod over the offense entirely. There has to be some level of like, this is what we're doing. It can't be all the time. There has to be some balance of that, and that balance doesn't seem to be there to me.
Nick famously kind of looked like a goofball in Seattle a couple years ago when Jalen and AJ went off script. Did the same thing in Green Bay. Evidently, Jalen and AJ went off script trying for the kill shot in Green Bay. Nick kind of looked like a nut job. Protected his players. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's well intended, for sure. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, those are different situations to me in the sense that the Green Bay decision, like the analytics kind of favored punt there.
Yeah.
So I don't even think the offense should have been out on the field. I think they should have punted the ball. But, I mean, it's good in that I think, you know, it's like the Andy Reid of it all. Like, I got to do a better job. You're shielding your players. But it also seems bad from a standpoint of maybe, and I think a lot of this comes down to, like, trust. And Jalen not trusting. It doesn't seem like there's like trust always in the coaching staff and what they're calling, and that has to be earned. Like it's not just like blind trust. So I think that's a part of the problem with the dynamic as well.
And some of that might have to do with the fact that there's a new play caller every year, like one of our super chatters pointed out earlier today. I mean, does Jalen, you know, everyone's like, oh, Jalen makes the call. Well, Jalen knows that he's the only constant, you know, he's the only common denominator throughout the course of time with this offense. Maybe that's a big part of it. I don't know that it justifies, you know, what's happened, but I do think it's a fair way to look at it for the quarterback. I don't know if that, you know, I don't know how that impacts moving forward, but BLG, my next question for you would be, what does this mean for moving forward? You know, the other part of the article was, well, now you have a new coordinator coming in who's going to try this Shanahan-McVay style offense, which naturally just has more motion and has more play action and things like that, where Jalen's going to have to turn his back to the defense and things of that nature. How do you see this going? And how do you kind of see why this has happened? Do you think they're trying to put maybe more pressure on Jalen to execute a different offense, or do you think it's just the nature of the beast? What do you make of the change of offense coming after this article?
Well, one of the things that was mentioned in the article as well, I think, is the fact that the Eagles, like, they weren't necessarily gearing up for what they ultimately kind of found to be successful for them in that little stretch there against the Vikings, against the Giants, and even, you know, going back to what was talked about with Jeff Stoutland and his departure. And Jeff Stoutland apparently reportedly didn't feel that was communicated very well to him, and how that change went from him not really being the run game coordinator anymore. Perhaps same kind of issue with Jalen, where it's just like, okay, well, now we're just doing this. It's not really necessarily, the why isn't there. You know, maybe it's not being explained well. Like, okay, why are we doing this now? Like, I thought we had this plan. Now we're changing. Like, I think that's kind of important to this whole thing, is getting Jalen to. I don't think Jalen like is so rigid that he won't do something just for the sake of doing it. I think the rigidity comes, if that's a word, comes from like needing to understand why we're doing this. And I think if they can sell him on the why, and have a good answer about that, and him feeling good about that, I think you're going to see more buy-in.
This is a big Jalen Hurts day for obvious reasons, but I do want to talk about Jalen Carter because I thought there was a little bit of an awkward situation, and it was Tim who asked the question about Jalen, and he was talking about Jalen Hurts, understandably so now because we understand what was coming. But Jeffrey Lurie thought he was talking about Jalen Carter and a potential extension, and he was very, I don't want to say down about it, but it was very nondescript. And then when it was corrected, and then he got all effusive about Jalen Hurts, it just struck me just how overboard he went for Jalen Hurts and how underboard, if that's a word, he was about Jalen Carter. Did that strike you, or am I just overblowing that?
I think that's fair. And I think Jalen Carter's on the spot. I mean, look, I think, there's obviously the AJ situation, which impacts their cap. But usually I feel like when the Eagles want to extend some of their young core players, they don't wait around to do that, even within the offseason. They do it pretty much, I feel like, right away. And Landon Dickerson, they paid him right before free agency a couple years ago, as soon as they could, when he became eligible. And years past, same kind of thing. The fact that it's taken time with Jalen Carter, makes me wonder a little bit.
It's got to be two-way, though. He's coming off a down year from his perspective, and maybe he's thinking,
absolutely.
I think they're trying to, well, they want it to be as team-friendly as possible. And, his agents, Drew Rosenhaus, they're probably trying to destroy the market. So it's probably a little bit more difficult. I think they'll eventually get it done. Are you still in that camp, or do you think there's serious concerns?
I think eventually, yeah, barring, he goes out this season. Or I don't know if they're definitely going to get done this offseason. I think ultimately, in the big picture, it will get done. But I do think there could be some hesitancy. And again, we'll see once the AJ situation clears up, maybe that's the key to this all and freeing up the money and everything. But
it's funny, we're not even talking about AJ, who is a member of the Eagles, BLG, if you didn't know.
Well, we'll see what happens, right? According to Jeffrey Lurie, we'll see what happens down the road.
We'll see what happens. He is a member of the Eagles.
It's true.
Well, what'd you make of the PR comments from now? And now it's not only Howie and Nick; it's also Jeffrey Lurie giving the same scripted PR comment on AJ Brown.
It's factually true.
That's true.
He is a member of the Eagles right now.
Yeah.
Does that mean he will be a member of the Eagles this season? I don't think so. Still, I really don't. And that's how those questions have gone in the past with other players too. He's a member, and not even just the Eagles, but league wide. Yeah, he's a member of the team right now. So, but even Lurie, like I said, Lurie saying there that we'll see what happens down the road. I mean, come on, I feel like that tells you all you need to know.
I guess we should talk about the stadium a little bit because it's 7 years out, but you got to get your ducks in a row for these things. And he didn't commit to South Philadelphia. I think that rubs people the wrong way, but it would be dumb for him as a businessman to commit to South Philadelphia at this stage. Is that just leverage? Do you take it for more than that? Are people upset at Bleeding Green Nation? Because I got a lot of upset people. Well, the fans obviously want it in South Philadelphia. It'll probably end up in South Philadelphia, but I mean, you got to keep your leverage open, right?
Sure. I do think it's funny to see the answer we'll just do whatever what's best for the fans.
That's bullshit.
If the stadium ends up in Camden, New Jersey, I don't think the fans are feeling like, oh yeah, that's what we wanted. I really have a hard, and I'm not saying that will happen, but if that is the case, I have a hard time believing that was what the fans really felt like, and also that is what is best for the fans. I do not believe that. So I get the people who wanted to stay in, number one, Philly at all, for sure, and then South Philly specifically.
Are you a fan of the potential of the dome in Philly, or are you against it? Do you feel strongly one way or the other?
I would do the the one the retractable roof. I think is what I'm more interested in.
The happy median, the right in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, you need a retractable. I mean, you do because you want to get a Super Bowl and you want to get an NCAA Final Four, and the only way you get that is retractable roof. I mean, that just makes sense. But you do want to keep some of the outdoor environment. I get that part of it. And that to me makes the most sense. And we'll see where that goes. But I think it was important to at least bring that up because we would have been talking more about Jeffrey Lurie's comments as a whole, but obviously the Jalen Hurts story broke, and that's going to be, I assume, running things over at Bleeding Green Nation as well. BleedingGreenNation.com. Make sure you check out BLG and the staff there. But there are other things going around. Like Eagles lost an executive today or yesterday. Jeff Scott going to assistant GM of the Atlanta Falcons. The Eagles take pride in how many of their employees have gotten jobs elsewhere. Have you noticed any attrition there? Because they have lost a lot of guys. I mean, Ian Cunningham's now the Falcons GM. He was an Eagles guy. There has been a lot of attrition, but they keep drafting well. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even talked about the draft today, but that to me comes down to it can't go that good forever. It's got to regress to the mean at some point. Never a big story, but when they lose executives, how do you sort of take that?
Yeah, I think Howie is, and he's talked about the importance of this, is like keep stocking the pipeline. Like you have to keep doing that. I think it's a little bit like, if you have Vic Fangio, you have the real thing, and you have the Vic Fangio disciples. You don't necessarily have the real thing.
Oh yeah, we saw that. Yeah,
yeah. Like I think that's the big thing. But ideally, you have a strong team around him to support him, and I think when you lose a member here and there, that's like not felt as much as when maybe. Although a couple off seasons they did lose a lot, and it didn't seem to slow him down too much. But that just doesn't seem ideal. And Howie would say as much. He didn't like, and they changed kind of the some of the rules and procedures around the timing of when those departures can happen. But yeah, I think ultimately he does a really good job of continuing to stock the pipeline. Obviously, they brought Joe Douglas back. He feels good about that. They lost Dave Caldwell, but seem to be firing on all cylinders still.
BLG drafts 22 days away now before that first round kicks off. You're feeling one way or another about what the Eagles might do here in first round, or what they should do in round one and even day two here with rounds 2 and 3?
Yeah, I still am of the belief they'd really like to trade up for a tackle. If that is how the board presents the opportunity there for them. They have all these extra picks. I know the draft class isn't considered to be a very great one, but if they're going to have tiers of players, and if there's someone in that kind of that tier where they can jump up and get someone to be that eventual Lane Johnson successor, maybe someone who can get in the mix at guard earlier if need be. I think they would, if they have their druthers, I think that's what they would really prefer to happen there. Again, it always depends on how the board shakes out, but I think this offense in general is really the safe bet with how much they're going to be spending on the defense in terms of these contracts that are coming up, Quinion and Cooper Jean, Jalen Carter, so on and so forth. I think they're going to really want to get younger and cheaper on offense.
What do you think? What do you think of the draft proofing? I love that from Howie. I got to tell you, there's two things I love about Howie and why I think he's the best GM in the NFL. One is contingencies. I think he's always got a contingency when things don't work, and we'll see. Right now, we haven't seen it with Jalen Phillips at edge, but I think he's better at contingencies than his peers. And number two, I think he draft proofs the roster better than anybody. And I think you've seen it. And a lot of these players aren't even going to make the Eagles, I'm convinced. But when you bring in like guys like Joe Tryon, most recently Elijah Moore, even the Stone Smarts of the world, the Damian Pierce of the world, I don't see other teams doing that. Now, again, and they go into the draft and they say, well, we need a running back. It's we don't have a running. Like Howie always has that guy that if things don't go to plan, they can at least be serviceable. Am I overrating that, or do you like that? They're the only thing. It's almost every day. Chandler Martin, who's a younger guy who got hurt and evidently they think has upside. You don't see other teams doing this. I think it's a big winning outside the margin thing for the Eagles. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think it's all about setting the floor. You want to be like, well, at least we have this, maybe. And obviously, things can change. There's going to be opportunities to add players down the road in the draft or final cuts, wherever it is, trades. But let's at least try to set the floor here. So I do like that approach. I also feel like, looking back at, the Rick Woolen signing in free agency, that wasn't about like the Eagles like, well, okay, we needed to sign the best cornerback. Like they didn't go into the free agency with that mindset. They, as you talked about, John, with contingency plans, they really wanted to keep Jalen Phillips. They couldn't, or at least didn't ultimately want to with his price tag, which is incredibly reasonable. And they said, okay, now what? It's not like, oh, we have to go out and pay the next edge rusher no matter what. Like, it's not just we're so tied to this position that we have to spend this money, especially if it's not a good value. Like, I think Howie, I've always, even when I've been critical of him, and I have been, I think he is really good at assessing and getting value. And I think with, the Rick Woolen contract, it was a pivot to like, okay, this isn't necessarily, helping us solve the Jalen Phillips gone problem, but, oh, he's available here, and this is a good value. So let's just focus on the value more than we're focusing on the position. So I think, when it comes to, some of these bargain signings there, it's about like, okay, how do we set the floor? And we're not going to just overspend at a position of need just because we need that position, but we're going to just try to get good value. And I think that's what they've done.
Bill G, even if they made good decisions, they've lost a lot of good players, man. Do you think the Super Bowl window is still wide open? Do you think it's still right there out in front of them, or do you think that's closed a little bit?
I don't think this era of Eagles Super Bowl windows is necessarily wide open. I think it's kind of winding down. When I say that, I'm talking about coach, quarterback, a lot of the players on the roster.
The crux of what this team has been.
Your core, yes, absolutely. I think when you have Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, I think in the big picture, the window is, maybe it's not wide open in terms of it's always consistently open, but it could be opened again very soon, very easily, is how I'd say that.
At Brandon Gouton, make sure you follow him on the X platform. Read him at bleedinggreennation.com. You mentioned the draft. I'll leave it there. Last one from me. You mentioned trading up for a tackle. Do you have a favorite? Have you gotten that far? Do you have that guy you think they're going to go up and try to get? A lot of tackles that could go in the first round.
I don't have my draft crush yet. I usually do get locked in on someone every year, and I feel pretty good about that. And my track record of them actually taking that guy, it's been like scary accurate.
Yeah.
Like in the past.
Well, I can't figure out which way they're going on the offensive. No Stout. If Stout was here, I would have penciled in Caden Proctor and went to bed 3 weeks ago and said, all right, I'm not moving. Now I don't know. I don't know. He would have been the most Eaglesy pick of the potential picks, Caden Proctor, if Stoutland was here. Now I'm starting to think about Blake Miller, and I'm starting to think about Monroe Freeling, but he's going to go too high, I think. Even Max Ionacor, because he's such a good athlete, although I that would scare me. He's very raw. That one wouldn't work. But there's like 7 or 8 tackles that might go in the first round. It's good odds bet to say they're going tackle.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see. All right, BLG, appreciate you joining in today, my friend. A lot of interesting things happening in Eagle Land, as always. Not what I expected to wake up to. I went to bed last night. I saw the Jeffrey Lurie comments, and I wake up and I see a whole
April Fools. April Fools.
How do I talk about both of these things in one show? It's kind of interesting. So we'll see what happens, BLG. Thanks for joining in, my friend. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, guys. See you then.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Brandon Lee. And there's BLJ joining us right here. Read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. I don't know, John, there's some mic problems there. People get mad at me in the chat for not fixing it. I don't know how to fix it, man. He wasn't at his normal setup. So apologize if you couldn't hear BLJ, but it was a good interview nonetheless. We appreciate him.
How can you fix somebody else's microphone?
I don't know.
Come on, guys.
They think
it held up most of the way. I figured, there were a couple dead spots, but it held up most of the way.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know if it's lower to them than it is to us, because I don't have a problem hearing them. It's a little lower, but it's not hard for me to hear them. It is what it is. All right, Johnny Mac, we got about 10, 11 minutes left on the show today. And interesting show here on April 1st, coming off of the heels of that article.
Didn't think it would be this interesting on April 1st, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither.
But a lot of the things are just confirmation of what we knew. But the fourth down certainly is going to be. People are going to run with that, and does not surprise me that they ran that play because the quarterback was comfortable with it. Kind of what I said. And it's a staple in every offense. I think a lot of the foundational stuff is, as I said, is just based off wrong, premises, and the fact that nobody runs four birds, and everybody runs four birds, and Green Bay specifically. Hey, Sean Mannion's coming from Green Bay. Guess who runs more four birds than anybody? So get used to it. But yeah, so it's always interesting to get clarification on stuff like that, and a lot of good information in there. Highly recommended.
Definitely a lot of good information in there for sure. We will see how this kind of changes the offseason discussion around the Eagles this year, especially going into the NFL draft. There's a lot of things up in the air for this Philadelphia Eagles football team, coming off a year that was definitely disappointing, John. I mean, you could tell the owner felt the same about that too, that they took a step back, and he knew it too, which was good to know. I mean, you don't want him to not acknowledge that there's a step back. Now, I don't think he acted like they were a 5-win team like you've joked about, but I do think he acknowledged the step back, which is a good thing. And, you can't fix a problem if you don't acknowledge it exists, John. So I think that's a good positive.
Yeah. And maybe I took it, the part that, you got to be realistic about Nick Sirianni. Look at the resume. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because we're not the ones who, I've been one of the ones who said, yeah, this resume is pretty impressive. And I wasn't the one thinking about firing him. So maybe I took that a little bit too personally. But yeah, obviously he was talking to the fan base, not me, but you do have to be realistic, and it's been pretty fucking good, which is the whole point.
Right.
And why I don't think, but then I take that a step further. That's why I say you don't act like a 5-win team when you win 11 games and you had a bad game against San Francisco. I mean, football's so razor thin. People don't like when I go back to the Super Bowl season and say they're a block away from losing to the Rams. They're one block away from losing to the Rams. Jalen Carter doesn't create that pressure. In hindsight, last year, they might be a play away from going into Chicago and beating Chicago, and because I don't think Chicago is ready, and going to the NFC Championship game in Seattle. Now, I don't think they would have beaten Seattle, but I think the season would be looked about a lot differently. And maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe Kevin Petula would still be here and yada, yada, yada. But I think it's that close to, remember the Devontae Smith play before the fourth and whatever.
Yeah, the drop. He dropped it, right? Yeah.
First down where would it have been? First down at
the 11, I think it would have been, right? The 11-yard line.
Yeah. So so they were at the San Francisco 20, 1st and 10. They lose a yard. Jalen Hurts was sacked. Then an incomplete pass. Then the drop by Devontae Smith. And they would have been at, about the 10-yard line with 43 seconds to go. Now, no guarantee you're getting in, but you got a good shot. That's how close things are in the NFL.
Right. John, this piece is quite extensive, man. I didn't even get a chance to read the whole thing yet, but I'm looking through at the end of it here, and some commentary about A.J. Brown and zone coverage, Jalen Hurts and man versus zone, talking about most of his touchdown passes come against man coverage. A.J. Brown disappears versus zone coverage. What do you make of that from a football standpoint, John?
Well, the ball doesn't come out. Like when you're you know, in the NFL, like that's the biggest difference for a quarterback between college and pro. Like you're generally maybe there's 2 or 3 games a year you play, even if you're an SEC school or a high level Big Ten school. There's probably 2 or 3 games a year where you play against similar talent. Maybe a few more when you start talking about the playoffs, but you get the point. You're throwing to a lot of open receivers. And the NFL open is not what it is in college. It's like a small window that's closing quick. Yeah, occasionally you get blown coverages and it's easy, but I'm talking on a consistent basis. And if you're playing zone against really good zone teams, like the Eagles are, by the way, even though some people don't know they're in zone because there's a lot of man match coverage, a lot of complicated coverages from teams like the Eagles, and that's what has made things difficult for quarterbacks around the league. Those windows close quickly, and even if you look at the 4th and 11 play on the 4 birds, the dumbest play in the history of football, he was open for a split second. And the only way it was going to work is if that ball was out on time and it was a bullet. Now, even you know, it would have had to been a really good throw as well. But number one, it's as soon as it comes out late, the play's over. If it was on time and it was a bullet and a lot of contextual, maybe it's a historic play. But the ball's got to come out on time, and if it doesn't, AJ Brown disappears.
Is this an adapt or else moment for this offense, for Jalen Hurts, for this team?
It seems like it is. The lip service as it is, I don't believe that. I don't believe it. You know, we'll see, basically. I know people want an answer. I haven't met Sean Mannion yet. It seems like they want to change. Ultimately, I think it's going to be similar to what Kellen Moore did. He came in with the mentality of, I want to change. I want this to change. And he scaled it back to take advantage of what he had. I think Sean Mannion's going to do the same thing, but I have no idea of knowing that. I have heard the little Easter eggs. Nick Sirianni said, well, we did a lot of good stuff, and that'll be morphed in too. That's the same stuff he said with Kellen Moore.
Right.
So
and I think the stakes are even higher this time around because, you know, I know you don't buy into that necessarily, that the league is caught up with it, but it feels like the league is caught up with it. And even if it's not the league catching up with it, it's just players not being as good. That's still the factor, you know? So it feels like the stakes are even higher this time around.
Yeah. Well, yeah, from the standpoint, yeah, the players, that's the problem. You're running it back with a bunch of players who are a year older coming off down years for the most part. That my only point about the league not catching, you don't catch up to well executed blocking schemes. Not possible. Can't catch up to it.
John, a little inside baseball question for you. Do you, when you see an article like this, who comes out from Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler, obviously 2 very well-connected guys, Tim being very, very well-connected locally, well-respected, and a great reporter for a long time. Do you think the organization, I don't want to say give him his blessing, but like, do they know it's coming? How do the guy, they do, right?
Yeah. Well, you asked him for a comment. In fact, at some point there, I believe there's and I read it really quickly this morning, but
yeah, it came out, right? You know, or you put it up right before our show.
Yeah. There's a part in there where they requested comment from the Eagles. So, and the Eagles obviously declined. You always, they have a heads up because you want to comment.
But do you believe that they would have had the ability to nix an article like this? Like, because there are people, and I'm not saying it's true, but there are people out there who see stuff like this and think, the organization puts this stuff out on purpose or uses people to put stuff like this out on purpose, or they give sources to Tim, to put in the article to create narratives on purpose. Those are all lines of thinking. And I'm not saying any of them are true. I'm simply asking for what your perspective.
The Eagles didn't want this story out there. I mean, the answer is yes to all of that at times. That's not what happened here. I've been around long enough to understand. Yeah, this is well sourced from the standpoint of how many people they talk to. And the people that hate anonymous, well, you're not going to go on. That's just journalism. I can't teach people journalism in 10 minutes on Birds 365. I mean, that's how it works. You're not going to put your name to something that's going to impact you with the organization. But there are times the team tries to get out its narrative, and there are times where it's just good reporting. This is just good reporting. But yeah, I mean, obviously the team wants certain narratives out there, and they try to get it out there as best as they can. And sometimes there's not even, most of the time it's not anything like when Andy Dalton got traded for it. Most of the time the team is saying, look, this, we like Tanner McKee. This isn't about trading Tanner McKee, that type of thing. Not, underhanded.
Yeah, right.
Things that people conjure up in their mind, just trying to give and that's more about trying to give people the proper background of what's going on for a particular decision or things like that. But so anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying no, the team is not leaking or giving Tim sources, and no, that doesn't happen.
All right, good stuff. Couple super chats, then we'll let you run here. John, Terrence, what's up, Terrence? Terrence Bond says, this is a hired hit on my boy Jalen. This story comes out right after Lurie's comments. I see what's happening.
Yeah. No offense, Terrence, and thanks for listening in the super chat. But I mean, yeah, I can't help you if you think that. I mean, it's fine. There's no use. I mean, think about it. Hired hit.
One thing I can guarantee.
I don't even think it's a negative piece.
Well, one thing I can guarantee, I think Lurie spoke at like 7:45 or 8 last night. Tim McManus did not stay up all night writing this piece. This thing was he's been writing this for maybe a month.
Yeah.
Which
that's one of my, because Mike was talking about it. Everybody's, you have 400 people. Like, I hate that. I wish. ESPN's one of the only outlets left that give people time to
do journalism
like that. Yeah.
Everything else is, flash of the pan, heat of the moment. Get it up quick. Yeah, I get that. I wonder if there's an area where we could do that more, but conflicts, I guess, with what you're doing here. Here's Salt Up says, this fan base don't deserve Jalen Hurts. All he does is win. Watch when he leaves and we get a bum QB and we start looking like losing like the Cowboys. This fan base is ungrateful, and fuck Philly media. Now it's our fault. Go on, man. Let this react.
Blame the messenger.
Fuck Philly
media. I tell you all the time. I have folders in my email. I have hate mail folders. And it's my goal to get to. I'm a fan of 32 teams.
Yeah, right.
I'm very close, but now I don't cover the league nationally, so probably never going to get there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Get it out, vent.
There you go. Sauce it up. Thanks for the super, brother. We appreciate it. Checking in. All right, John, your final thoughts here. Oh, real quick. Yeah, there was a thing that came up on Brandon Graham was supposed to have a press conference, and then it never happened. Did you hear anything about that, or do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it was first of all, it was I think it was on that Bussin' with the Boys account where he said he was going to have from Arizona a press conference at like 11 Eastern time. So I didn't know. At first, people are thinking, well, maybe he's talking about maybe missed, time zones and stuff, maybe meant Arizona. But anyway, 11 passed, 2 passed, and no press conference. So now other than, announcing another retirement, I don't know if the Eagles, I'm of the belief of he shouldn't be back, but and they just signed Joe Tryon. Like, I mean, Brandon's awesome, but at some point you got to move. I mean, at some point you got to move on. But who knows what's going on? Maybe, there's a tremendous love for him with this organization. Maybe they'll bring him back for 1 year at the veteran minimum or close to it. From a football standpoint, I don't think it's going to be that meaningful. But I don't know why the press conference didn't happen.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, last one here. T-Time says, don't act like reports not drop at a certain time to gain traction. It's not a coincidence it was released this morning. They talked about it on ESPN right now, calling him not coachable. Come on now.
Well, no, obviously, things are dropped for.
Yeah, maximum.
Obviously, it was.
That's business. They have to. They got to make money, guys.
It's the NFL meetings. It's a crux point. It's similar to saying like, well, trades happen at the beginning of free agency, at the draft, post June 1st. Yes, there's a crux point to everything. That is certainly with outlets like ESPN. That is not in the hands of the writers. They're not saying, "Hey, release this."
Maybe where T-Time might be right. Maybe the ESPN execs or whoever controls that was like, "Yo, release it after the owner." I don't know. Who knows? Because it did kind of drop pretty weird. Is it public yet to the non-African link?
I don't know. Everybody seems to have it, so I think so. But I don't know. I've been doing the show. I haven't been checking for the link, but
yeah, it's out there now.
Yeah.
On a non-African link.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not babies. It's not baby years. Yeah, obviously things are done to maximize readership and things like that. But that's the business part, and is usually the shitty part of journalism, and it's kind of ruined journalism is the business part.
Well, yeah, but there is no journalism without the business part, right? I mean, people got to get paid.
Unfortunately,
make money. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
All right, Johnny Mac, good show. I'll catch you tomorrow on a Thursday edition of Birds 365. Thank you, my friend.
All right, thanks all.
All right, thanks, John. There's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show today. Interesting show today. Not what I expected to be talking about on today's program, but a good one nonetheless. And I'm sure everybody's got a whole lot of thoughts about it in the chat. We will take some of those thoughts right now. John says it wasn't a scathing thing. I thought it was a scathing report. Now, I didn't read the full thing because 7:39 or 7:48 or one, I don't know, something like that. John retweeted it and put it out there. I'm like, whoa, what is this? I have John's notifications on X. So I clicked on it and I read it, and then the show started about 12 or 13 minutes later. So the report is so long, I didn't even get through the entire thing, but I did get a summary of it and stuff. And I didn't think it was a very great article. I mean, I thought it was kind of a scathing article. I mean, talking about a whole lot of just to summarize it for you guys. ESPN article, Tim McManus, Jeremy Fowler, ESPN pulling back the curtain, if you will, kind of how they always do it, on the Eagles' offensive dysfunction, basically stating Hurts is at a crossroads with the team, pushed back on scheme changes, kind of went to bat against Kellen Moore a little bit about the same concepts, and it's calcified the passing game is is the word that was used, calcified. All right, now with Mannion coming in, how much does the offensive change, force Jalen Hurts or the Eagles offense to adapt? I think that's kind of the summary of it. There's a couple key details, at least the ones I read. The fourth down play call, the one that everybody got mad at Kevin Patullo about, the 4 verticals, Well, apparently that was the recommendation of the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who wanted to run 4 verticals on that play. A couple people on the sidelines. There was a quote, "Oh my God, this is not happening." So people on the sideline were apparently upset with what they were running, and certainly maybe thought some of the same things that the fan base did. The other stuff in there was, on Hurts resisting the scheme changes. He fought Kellen Moore, and this is from the article. So don't you want to attack me? I don't really give a fuck. Go somewhere else. Go cry in the corner. Go pout on social media. I don't really give a rat's ass what you got to say about it. I'm relaying to you what the article states. He fought Kellen Moore on motion and shifts in 2024, and Moore has obviously ran way more motion once he left, and he was running way more motion before he got here. Continually fights going under center. He doesn't like turning his back on the defense. Changes play calls to what some feel is an excessive degree. It was the quote, an excessive degree. And a source close to Hurts says he had too many yes men or yes people around him last season. That was on Jalen Hurts. And then on A.J. Brown, growing frustration directed at Hurts from within. The 4-year relationship together has been tested. Brown disappears against zone coverage. His yards per reception dropped from 14.1 to 11.7, and his yards per target from 9.1 to 7.3 against zone. Brown, obviously the subject of trade talks this summer. Hurts versus zone coverage. He faced zone coverage on 56.2% of plays, second highest of his career. Might show the defenses are changing the way they want to play them. And his completion percentage is actually better versus zone, but all his touchdowns basically come against man. 19 touchdowns to 3 picks versus man, compared to 6 touchdowns versus 3 picks versus zone, and 77 out of 110 career touchdown passes have come against man coverage. Now you have Patullo fired, Sean Mannion coming in. Mannion, 33 years old, first year as offensive coordinator, implementing a McVay Shanahan style system. Heavy motion and heavy under center play action. This is the most dramatic offensive haul since Sirianni was hired, and perhaps this is where I got the adapt or else mentality here, where it feels like this is an adapt or else moment for Jalen Hurts and for this Eagles offense. All right. The other thing in there was the Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts relationship was tense at times in 24, apparently, even during the Super Bowl run. And then Barkley's big, Russian decline in 25 is one of the reasons that perhaps the offense struggled last year. When he's not making the safeties be honest, stay in the zone, stay in the box, they're forcing him to beat him with his arm. And that's perhaps where some of the struggles have come. Another quote here on Jalen Hurts in the article: poor body language, not always bought in, not the most coachable, and players notice. So that is some of the synopsis, some of the recap of the ESPN article that dropped today from Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler. John can say that's not scathing. Folks, to me, that sounds pretty scathing, okay? That sounds pretty scathing to me of an article, kind of an expose, if you will. These things always seem to happen in Philadelphia. And look, part of it's the way the Eagles handle media. I mean, they try and control every single narrative ever, and then you ultimately end up with big articles like this that have like an expose style feel to them. So it is what it is. You don't have to buy it. You can buy it. I don't really care one way or the other. Dabney will say it's engagement bait. KCA says he buys it 110%. I think both lines of thinking are fair. Dabney's certainly entitled to feel it's engagement bait, and our guy who dropped the super chat, Tea Time, you guys are allowed to feel that way. Some other people will feel it's a scathing article against Jalen Hurts. I happen to think it's a scathing article against Jalen Hurts. That would be my opinion of it. Doesn't mean that there's not some truth to maybe there's some bait in there, or there is some, dropping in at this time for maximum value. I understand all that, but look, I don't think this display is good for the Eagles organization. And I don't even think it's all Jalen, by the way. I mean, if this is true about Jalen, some of these things that come out, well, he operates and exists within the fucking organization, who has leaders, who has a general manager, a head coach, an owner. I mean, if they're letting all this stuff permeate all the time, then, I think they have to bear some responsibility for that as well. Rasputin says, I'm not discrediting McManus. I'm saying it was approved before publication and the timing was intentional. That could be very well true, Rasputin. Tea Time says, I'm not saying it's not true, just the release of it is being today's. And I agree with you 100%, Tea Time. Tea Time, what I think happened is the owner or the editor, where John is right, Tea Time, is Tim McManus didn't push that article out at this time because of the owner spoke. That's not really how it works. They don't have that type of power. You know, the editors at ESPN, though, might have gotten a call from a higher up and said, hey, this Jalen Hurts topic's about to explode. Let's get this thing out there right now. And maybe they forced it out at this time. That certainly could have happened. Who knows? All reporting is asking questions and hearing answers, then telling. Well, that's not really true, Brandon. That's not all reporting is. All you have to do is look at Kellen Moore's offense this year with the Saints. Correct. Take Sills' mic away. Why? Because he's giving you too much truth on the Eagles? Yeah, whatever you think. Sills is going to be going off on this. Of course, John doesn't think it's skating. He's a writer. That's true. It's a good point. Morgan and Morgan doesn't care if Zander or Dan. Why? Someone talking about Morgan and Morgan controls us? That's hilarious. You think Morgan and Morgan controls us? Rasputin, I got news for you. Morgan and Morgan appreciate their sponsorship. If they left tomorrow, nothing would change. All right. They are not how I pay my bills. They are an added bonus to what we generate. That is not it. I tell you guys this all the time. You know who pays the bills? You know who keeps the lights on? The people of JAKIB Nation. The people of JAKIB Nation. So all the people who say, Sills is a loser. Oh, Rob Freeman on Facebook. Ah! Oh, my God. There's somebody out there who doesn't glaze my Eagles. Ah! Rob, go fucking cry in the corner. Turn your back in the corner. Get your fucking sippy cup, Rob. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Shut up, Rob. Shut up. God, I've never see this fan base is hilarious, man. How buttercups this fan base is. So many of you guys are such butterballs. It's amazing. I don't even understand what happened. You know, this is not the city that I grew up in. I swear it's not. Oh, look, here's Rob. JAKIB Sports is Loserville. Why are you here then, Rob? Fucking dork. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Get Rob as Jalen Binky. Jalen Blanky. Yeah, apparently a lot of people need those. A lot of people need those, including Rob. Any Rob listeners that aren't Rob Friedman? The name Rob in my life is, not a lot of good Robs out there. I don't know. So maybe there's a good Rob in here, and I'm disparaging you for no reason, but a lot of Robs are buttercups. I know a lot of Robs, and they're all fucking buttercups. Oh, Sills is such a cupcake. That's so true, Prince. That Prince is such a Sills is such a cupcake. I tell him that all the time. I tell him that all the time. Don't worry, I'm not afraid to tell him. There you go. There's a good Rob. There we go, Rob. Rob, we need you. You're saving the name of Rob. Everybody, all these other Robs are hurting the names of Robs all over the place. All right? Come on, man. Here's Alfredo. Here is Broccoli Alfredo. Zander, I pushed back on John with Kellen Moore because we still had Stout. He's not here anymore. The coaches we brought in don't run Stout scheme. So how can Mannion shift back? Interesting question. I'll ask that. It's a good one. I mean, you guys got to be kidding me. What happened to this Buttercup City? We can't even read an article anymore. We can't even read an article. Holy moly. Here's Twiz. What's up, Twiz? Jerry, that's a funny comment, but I don't want to read it out loud, bro. Zander, last couple of years, John said Jalen would do everything at practice, but won't do it in game. You can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. That's true, Twiz. Engagement bait season, baby. Dabney, I appreciate that thought process. I'm good with it. I don't try and tell people what to think or believe. All right. It's like the NBA. They're canceling that dude because he has different beliefs. It's like, wait a second. So now individuals aren't allowed to adhere to their own set of beliefs and principles and standards. That's what it is. Either accept this belief or else. Well, bullshit. You can believe that, but I'm allowed to believe whatever I want. What the fuck? You must believe the alphabet mafia or else. Jaden Ivey, you are cut from the team. Huh? Well, because I don't adhere to that belief. I'm not even making them adhere to my beliefs. I'm simply adhering to my own beliefs. And now you're cut? Don't even get me started on that story. What a crock of shit that story was. What a crock of shit. That's a load of baloney, that story in the NBA. Eagles fans out protesting for the no Kings. Was that this weekend? I think I got we had a thing in our door. We had a thing in our door. Secunda, was this you? Mayan, was this you, brother? So there was a like somebody put like a pamphlet in our door of like, come join the no Kings protest. I'm like, huh? Does anybody even know what they're protesting? I don't even think people know. I think they just get together to have a powwow, and wear their rainbow Speedos together. There's Reyes. No hashtag, no Kings. Make or break season for Jalen or Nick. I agree. I don't know, man. Did you guys hear the owner yesterday? I mean, seriously. We're talking about the article right now. Did you guys hear the freaking owner? The guy had donut glaze on his mouth after talking about Jalen Hurts. It was almost not even believable. It sounded like an AI. It sounded like a programmed robot talking about Jalen Hurts. Oh my gosh. I love Jalen Hurts. Nobody loves Jalen Hurts as much as me. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, holy moly, dude, take a breath. Take a breath. You shouldn't love anybody that much. I mean, it was hilarious. That was hilarious. Oh, Reyes, you sisspot. I heard the owner, heaviest glaze you will ever witness from owner to... Agreed, Afredo. I have never heard anything like that. The owner had literally took a trip to Krispy Kreme. You could tell. It was evident all over the yard. The owner had Krispy Kreme all over his face. I mean, it was ridiculous. There is nobody that is a bigger fan of Jalen Hurts than I am. Oh, my goodness. Wow. There's Robbie Boy is still in here. Jalen haters living their best life. I am not a Jalen hater at all. I think anybody who's listened to me knows that. I'm not a Jalen hater at all. I'm a Jalen realist. He's not perfect. No quarterback is. I say that all the time. He's not perfect. Some of the problems he has are some of the reasons that the offense stinks. It's okay to admit. It's all right. The passing offense has been bottom 5 in the league the last 2 years. Find me another planet where the quarterback has nothing to do with that. I mean, come on. It doesn't even add. 2 + 2 = 4. Well, not here. It doesn't. Okay? Not here. All right? Not here. It's not true. And Gary agreed with that one, my friend. Duped. America first. Come on. We're fighting now we're fighting for wars overseas. We're fighting for other it's all a crock of shit. It really is. It is what it is. Here's Pump. Brian Pumper told y'all Hurts was ass. Pump, be careful. You're going to get people fired up. Am I allowed to enjoy both sides? Like, you guys get mad. I enjoy people who love Jalen, like Broccoli Alfredo and Dominique Dabney. And I also enjoy, and Robbie Friedman. And I also enjoy the other people who shit on him. Like Brian Pump. Hilarious. Truly hilarious. A truly hilarious time in Eagle Land. Rasputin taking a shot at B Pump. Pumper throwing spaghetti at the wall. Can't take credit for Hurts hate when you said Ringo was Jalen Ramsey 2.0. Yeah, pretty funny. Pretty funny. Reyes, no pushback on that from me, my friend. I'm not a fan of any of that thing, of any of those things. Brian Pumper was put on this earth to slay all the Jalen. Pump, if that's why you were put on this earth, I need you to pursue a higher life calling. Come on, man. Brian, come on, bro. Your calling in life is greater than that. It's higher than that. It's bigger than that. It's better than that. All right? Now, that might be a part of your journey, Pump. That might be a part of your journey. But that is not why you were put on this earth. All right? You are capable of greater than that, my friend. I promise you, Pump. Zander, I got a job to do. Oh, man, that's funny. You guys are hilarious. Here's Underdog. That man is doing God's work, Z. Oh, gosh. What are you talking about, Underdog? I don't even know what you're talking about. Pastor Z. Nah, not me. Not me. I curse too much. I mean, it's Holy Week, and I'm out here cursing up a storm. You know? Rasputin, good show, Z. See this? Oh, Cilio's going to have fireworks today. Oh, he's going to have fireworks. He's going to mock the owner, as he should. The owner sounded ridiculous. I mean, come on. Come on. Yeah, does he even love his own son that much? Would he even speak about his own son that way? I mean, the Krispy Kreme was insane yesterday. The Krispy Kreme from the owner. So Cilio's going to mock him for that, and then he's going to go off on this piece. I guarantee it. Pretty funny. I guess these guys don't see the 1,000 times he rolls right from a perfect pocket, taking half the. Oh, everybody sees that. I mean, they can choose to not acknowledge it, but that's if you don't see that, then your eyes are closed. I mean, come on, Jerry. I mean, yeah, that's been his thing for his whole career. He rolls right. Hurts isn't tea time. You might be right, bro. Jeffrey Lurie is putting in he is like pseudo adopting Jalen Hurts. I love Jalen Hurts. There is nobody that's a bigger fan of Jalen Hurts than I am. I mean, come on, man. Come on, Jeffrey. Look, I understand why you like Hurts, but relax, guy. Sounded a little ridiculous. It almost sounded like you're trying to sell it too much, you know? Fred, see, I think you're right about this. I think Lurie loves the way that Jalen represents the organization. I think you're right about that. In Eagle Land, it's gay. Reyes, nobody said that at all. See, this is where you're Cilio in your own way, Reyes. Nobody ever said that, Reyes. In fact, I think most people have given him a tremendous amount of credit for leading the team to as much success as they've had. But at the same time, the offense hasn't been good. And the reason the team wasn't successful last year is because of the offense. Now, if you want to live in a world where the quarterback of the team, he'd be the only quarterback in the history of football, has nothing to do with the offense underperforming, if that's the world you choose to live in, well, then sure, then you can say it's gay to support your franchise quarterback. I think you can support him and also be real, be honest, be truthful, acknowledge what's in front of you. What's going on out here? Oh, shit. I wonder if that person's trying to get in here. I might have to run, guys. I got to run here. I got somebody trying to. Oh, shit. All right. I got to run. To be fair, Zander, I do call them the Galenites. Be careful, man. Have you seen what happened to this NBA guy? YouTube might nix me. Yeah, if we don't bow at the knee of the alphabet people, we are cooked. You know what? If they want to take me for it, so be it. So be it. I will prevail. All right? I will prevail. Love all you guys. Enjoy the conversation around the Eagles for the next 48 hours. It's going to be good. Man, I can't be here on Friday's show. I'm already upset about it, man. I'm already upset about it. The Friday show. A lot to talk about. Love all you guys. Hit that like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.